Welcome to another exciting episode of Musa and Show. Here is what we have today.
Sanibona, kule video manje ngifisa sikhulume ngalento eshuwe uReady lo we-MK Party mayelana ne-South Africa ANC President Ramaphosa nanokuthi ubani kahle kahle lo own iSouth Africa. Ushiza into eyishaqisayo ke kodwa ke angifisi kumkhulumela ngoba ngizofaka ivideo yakhe la azosikhulumela khona yena azisholo yena lokho akushoyo. Mhlambe engingakwenza mina uma ngabe kunento ayishoyo nginobufakazi bayo ngizobu-attach-a nabo ukuthi nje into eyenza ukuthi ngize ngenze le video kunevideo engiqeda kuyibona ngiyacabanga ukuthi awu-2 lama-video uma engekho u-3. So uma uzwa inkulumo enjengalezi ezizokhulunywa uReady bese ubuka nalama-video lawa kuyaqala kwenza umqondo wakho uqala ubuka izinto ngenye indlela. Ngakho-ke ngithe angiyishare lento emveni kokubona le video yakhe ngase ngithe angiwashare nalama-video ngoba noma bengisawagcinile ngingakazi ngizowashare up kodwa ngibone kuyindawo e-right le. Ngiyacela kusubscribe ku-channel, ulike ivideo, ucomment, ushare. Ngiyafisa ukuzwa ukuphawula kwakho. Ngiyabonga kakhulu kulabo abasubscribile le channel, isupport yenu inkulu kakhulu. Ngibona i-channel ikhula ngempela. Angikaze ngayicabanga le channel ngalesikhathi izobe kulama number kuwo. Kodwa nje ngiyabonga ngoba konke lokho possible ngenxa yokuthi niyayibuka le channel, niyakhomenta kuyo, niyashare, niyalike. Ungasupporta ngokujoin i-membership yale channel. Iqala ku-R40 ngenyanga kuya phezulu. Ungasupporta futhi ngokudonate ngalokho nawo. Ikhona i-account kwi-comment ephiniwe.
The next speaker is the Honorable Ready.
Honorable Speaker, members of the House, and all South Africans watching across the country, what I'm about to share with you today is explosive. This is information that has been deliberately kept from you, sealed behind court orders, spun by the media, and silenced in elite boardrooms. It's time the truth is told. To remain silent is to betray not only ourselves, but our children and the generations that follow. The topic before us, as House Chair, is the influence of global white supremacist movements on white nationalism in South Africa. And this is not just a theory, it is our lived reality. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party welcomes this debate because the influence of global white supremacy is not abstract. It's direct, it's deliberate, and it's devastating. Let us be clear. White supremacist forces have never left Africa. They've changed strategy. Today, they operate through global corporations, foreign embassies, media ownership, NGOs, and crucially, local proxies in politics. And the face of their local project, it began with none other than the DA. Heavily funded by global donors and corporate elites, the DA was promoted as a new non-racial alternative. But after years of media coverage and billion-rand campaigns, it hit a ceiling, 17%. That's when global white capital shifted its strategy. Don't fight the ANC, infiltrate it. They didn't need a revolution. They needed a representative. And so they found one in Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's ask the questions no one in this house dares to ask. How did Mr. Ramaphosa become a billionaire? Not because he invented something like Elon Musk, not because he built an empire from the ground up, but because white monopoly capital chose him, they sponsored him, and they enriched him.
Angizukuphawula ke mina kakhulu kule nkulumo ayishoyo futhi angizukufakaza angizukufaka kwabo kodwa lento ayishoyo iyenza ukuthi ngicabange ngoba ngiyamuzwa manje ukukhuluma izinto eziningi lezi ngithi angifuni ukuzikhuluma kodwa nje ngimlalela lento ayishoyo yenza ngizibuza ukuthi kungani lo babesho kanje.
25 years after the first elections, do you feel the disappointment of people and they don't believe in this new country again because 9 million of people didn't register for this election?
Yes, there is disappointment, but everything is not dark in South Africa. There's light at the end of the tunnel. If the ANC wins and President Ramaphosa keeps his promises, things will get better.
Le ntatheli yayibuza uformer president wale country FW de Klerk ukuthi njengoba kune-decline in terms of abantu abarejistile for ukuvota, ubona kanjani? Ubona ukuthi abantu balahlekelwe yithemba na kule government na kwi-South Africa nje kwipolitiki yase-South Africa? Uthi yena uyakubona lo, kodwa into ayifisayo ukuthi i-ANC iwine, uPresident Ramaphosa aqhubeka abe ngupresident bese egcina isethembiso sakhe. Hey, lento yenza ukuthi ngicabanga ukuthi okay, bebebona ukuthi i-ANC izodecline, kodwa isifiso sabo kwakungukuthi uPresident Ramaphosa akube uye ozophatha, emveni kokuphatha bese egcina isethembiso. Asiqhubeke ngoba asazi lutho.
So he could become their inside man. Through his company Shanduka Group, Ramaphosa acquired massive stakes in Lonmin, where he was on the board during the Massacana massacre, where 34 miners were killed. MTN, Standard Bank, McDonald's South Africa, Coca-Cola, Bidvest, and many more. Today, he is one of Africa's richest men. But whose money made him rich? Not yours, not mine. It's foreign capital. It's mining conglomerates. It's white-owned multinationals. And when the time came to secure the ANC presidency, these same forces bankrolled the CR17 campaign, pouring hundreds of millions of rands into his rise. And what did Ramaphosa do when South Africans asked, who funded you? He ran to court to seal the records. Why? Because he didn't want the nation to see that his presidency was bought and paid for by the very forces we are debating today, white supremacist global capital. And those who arranged this funding, they were rewarded. They sit among us as cabinet ministers, contracts and access to the state. This wasn't democracy. It was a transaction. Our freedom was long sold to the highest bidder.
Njengoba bengishilo ekuqaleni ukuthi njengomuntu ongazilutho akukho engizokufakaza, akukho engizokuphika, kodwa ngizocaphuna nje lamavila ambala oba lento lezi bengizibuza zona. So angisho ukuthi iziqiniso noma zilwane iqiniso, kodwa uma ulalela inkulumo njengale eshuwo already la bese uzwa le.
And your opening words were that Ramaphosa, the dream candidate of the EU in 2017, has reached his sell-by date. So he was the dream candidate. Why?
Because he was believed to be a successful businessman. People didn't look exactly at the performance of his businesses. They didn't realize his what role he played in the downturn of Lonmin, where a share price of maybe £10 fell to 10 pence. They didn't look at Shanduka. They didn't look at actual performance. They were hoping that a pragmatist, in a way a social democrat, would tame the transformation energy of the ANC. So that was the hope. That's why the West supported very strongly the Ramaphosa candidature, even financially. A lot of money was raised in London to help him win the nomination at the ANC conference.
Inkulumo efike ekuthuse nje yokuqala la mayiqala ukuthi yena lo professor uthe uRamaphosa has reached his sell-by date. I wonder lokho nje kusho ukuthini. Uthi usaxakwe lokho bese uyeza ukuthi he was a dream candidate for EU okuyi-European Union. Uthi imali eningi yaze yaraiswa for ukufunda icampaign yakhe CR17. Imali yaraiswa eLondon. So masuzwa uRede ekhuluma kanjena kwenza ukuthi uthi ayibo. Ngabe lento esho already iqiniso na angivume noma ngingayazi kahle. Kodwa mawuzwa kuthiwa kwaraiswa imali eningi eLondon, he was a dream candidate. Kwenza ukuthi uthi hey, kungenzeka na ukuba already ukhuluma iqiniso. Kodwa ke asazi kukuwe ukukhetha. Mina nje ngikulethela le video lengakho ngithe thema ngibuka le video kwakhona izinto ezishaqisayo. Ngase ngicabanga lama video bengiwatholile ngathi yithuba lokuthi ngiwafake la, kodwa ngiwafaka ngoba ngifisa sibe nengxoxo, ingakho ngifisa ukuza ukuphawula kwakho. Ngicela siqhubeke.
That's how global white supremacist movements now control South Africa's political direction. by inserting their interests directly into our government, using figures who look like us, but who do not serve us. Honorable House Chairperson, let's come back to the topic, the influence of global white supremacist movements on white nationalism in South Africa. Today, white nationalism no longer marches with flags. It wears suits, it owns companies, it writes editorials, and it ensures that land remains unreturned, banks remain untransformed, and black poverty remains the status quo. Let us look at how they attack those who dare to defy them. Siyabonga Gama made Transnet financially independent, growing profits from 27 billion rands to 32 billion rands. This is for the matric minister yesterday who attacked Siyabonga Gama, not knowing these facts. He has a double master's, by the way. Siyabonga Gama reduced over-dependence on American-made locomotives and brought China to supply 50% of the locomotives instead of 100% reliance on American diesel locomotives. This enraged global capital in New York and Washington. Look at Brian Molefe. He ended load shedding in this country, a fact that none of us can deny. During his time at Eskom, Lucky Montana, he revolutionized rail infrastructure at Prasa, prioritizing local suppliers and black contractors. But what happened to them? They were vilified, not because they failed, but because they succeeded without serving white capital. That is how white supremacy operates. It rewards obedience and punishes independence.
Yazi njengoba ekhuluma ngeTransnet, ungicabangisa into yashiwo Treasurer General we-EFF uSisi Omphile Moto, uyena wakhuluma kanje.
During the time of Brian Molefe, the minister was Malusi Gigaba. I remember at one point, Malusi came to East London when we were shipping the wagons and locomotives out of East London to Mozambique. He came because he believed in that struggle. Brian Molefe personally went to Tanzania to negotiate for a deal of Transnet manufacturing and maintaining the rolling stock of Tanzania Railways. And then Siyabonga Gama was the same. And then President Zuma came, the way he believed in this project that we're in. He came and he graced our ceremony by launching the Trans-Africa locomotive. But then since after that came the Ramaphosa administration that did what? That said, no, you can't go beyond the borders. And they won't say it to you, but you will just see with them declining anything and everything that seeks to speak to expanding your wings beyond the current. And that was, it didn't come as a surprise, by the way, because that was the regime of Maria Ramos. Maria Ramos did not believe in us expanding our wings beyond South Africa. And who's Maria Ramos? You're talking Trevor Manuel. You're talking, it's the same current regime. It's the current administration, actually. So we are in that situation. And we said, I personally said, look, my conscience would not agree that I still sit here and see that we will reverse all the gains that we're making.
Uma uzwe inkulumo ezinje kuyaye kwenze lokho ugcine ungazi ukuthi umiphi. Ingakho ke ngithe mina ngifuna ukuphawula lutho, ngifuna bona abakhulume uma nginobufakazi bento okukhulunywa ngayo ngibufake. Angisho nami ukuthi lokho abathi ukwenzile, angisho nami ukuthi usebenzela abathize, kodwa ngifaka nje amavideo lawo fakazela lenkulumo ekhulunywa yasiqhubeka.
Today, South Africa is in darkness, literally. We are sitting with blackouts, not because we lack coal or skills, but because those who fixed Eskom were removed. And
what did Brian and the others do in 2014? So that for so many years, there was no load shedding. They will find all manner of reasons. Instead of looking at this one, to maintain, to repair, to do whatever. And indeed, for so many years, there was no load shedding. He left. After a little while, it came back. So I say, it was very correct of Brian Molefe to say, I've been brought from there to here to deal with this matter of load shedding. Let's look at it seriously and act on it, which they did with positive results. So by the time this load shedding comes back in 2017, 2018, you must be able to guess why. It's because you got new people who don't behave in the way that Brian Molefe behaved. Why? I think it's deliberate.
Yabona makhulunywa ngomuntu engamlalela usuku lonke mayikhuluma khulunywa ngobaba uMzizi, former president uThabo Mbeki. Into nje engithusa kule nkulumo yakhe uthi lento le it was deliberate ngoba phela oBrian Molefe kukhona into abayenza lo shedding yangababikho. Mase bexoshiwe bona siyabuya lo shedding. So uthi ngoba labantu abangenile ababange besayenza lento enzo boBrian Molefe, lento le yonke le yenzeka la it was deliberate, into yamabomu. Ingoba kwenze njani? Angifuni ke ngena lapho ngoba ngizogcina sengikhipha izathu mina. Angifuni ukhipha izathu, ngifuna mina ukuthi wena obukele le video kube wena ozo decide ukuthi ufuna ukwenza njani, ufuna ukuthini, ubona kanjani. Ngiyafisa ukuqhubeka nobaba uMzizi before ngibuyela ku ready ngoba kunezinye izinto futhi ayishoyo engicabanga ibalekile. Asiqhubeke naye iningixoleleke ivideo ngibona ngathi bayinde kanti bengafi kodwa ke manje into enza ukuthi ibe yinde ivideo ilama video engilongiwa eda ukufakazela lenkulumo le noma ukucaphuna inkulumo ezehlukene kodwa ezishinto eyodwa. Kodwa ke konke lokho akungikhathazi ngoba nina njengabanikazi be-channel nangiphi imvume ukuthi angiyenze lento engiyenzayo. Mzukwane nashintsha nina nami ngiyoyeka ukufaka ama-video la ukusekela inkulumo esuke ikhulunywa ngaleso sikhathi. Asiqhubeke nobaba uMzizi.
7 years after Kusile started building the Kusile power station. 7 years after they started, there was not one, whatever you call it, of electricity that was coming from Kusile. After 7 years, nothing. What Eskom did was to contract an Indian company to come and build Kusile. The company came and built Kusile unit number 1 in a much shorter period than was expected. And Kusile power unit number 1, there it is, generating electricity. After 7 years, this Indian company was able to solve whatever the problem was. So it is not as though during the 7 years there were no ideas as to what is it to do in order to make sure that Unit 1 produces electricity. But the people were there, decided that they would not use that knowledge until the Indians were brought in. We used that knowledge, and in no time, Unit 1 was working. And then there's a strange thing that happens. So the Indians are expecting that their contract will be extended so that they do Unit 2 and Unit 3 and so on. No. Eskom says to them, we will extend the contract on condition you get a PEE partner. So, what the Indians had done, they had brought something like 50 engineers and technicians from India to do this power station. So, of course, they say to Eskom, we don't understand what you mean by this black economic empowerment. But for instance, if you have some black engineers to join ours, so maybe that. No, we don't have people like that. And they were training 150 As they were working on that Kusile thing and Mitupi, they were training 150 people. But because they couldn't agree on this PEE thing, they terminated the contract of the Indians. The Indians went home. Kusile is still not finished to this day. I'm saying it's deliberate. It's people who have wanted to produce this electricity crisis in the same way that they wanted to produce a revenue crisis by the destruction of SARS. You look at all of the state institutions. Look at Transnet. Look at what's happened to the police service. Look at the prosecution. All of these things going wrong.
Sesike sakhuluma kule channel ngendaba ye BEE. Salanda umlando ukuthi yaqala kanjani ngo91. Yaqalwa ngobani? Ububi bayo. Ngoba noma sekuthiwa itriple BE kuyafana. Nanokuthi yenza ukuthi kube khona icorruption eningi. Uyabona baluzi contract, amandi angayithola icontract ngenxa ukuthi kunabantu okwakufuneka bedle ngenxa ukuthi bona babengeke besakhona ukudla icontract yawaphelela amandi despite ukuthi amandi afika resolve iproblem ebebengakhona ukuyiresolve for 7 years. Ingakho ethi uformer president uThabo Mbeki yonke lento is deliberate. Kodwa futhi okunye ngifisa ukubeka yonke crisis ekhona inzuzo kwabathize. Yonke crisis ekhona inzuzo kwabathize. Ifaka imali. Inhlupheko yabantu inzuzo kwabathize. Inhlupheko nje iyodwa. Inhlupheko iindustry nemali eningi kabi. Inzuzo kwabathize. Ngifuna ukwenza umzekelo. Ngizokwenza umzekelo othanda ukuba mubi ke. Asike sikhulume nge-HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS inemali eningi kabi uma ungayibheka ngepoint le mali. Yebo abantu bayagula. Yazi mangathiwa mina nginekhambi le-HIV and AIDS. Nginganenkinga yokuthi ngingayilapha kanjani ngoba HIV and AIDS ifaka imali ngama-ARVs, ifaka imali ngama-condom athengwayo, ifaka imali ngama-testing kit, ifaka ama-campaign okufundisa abantu, ama-campaign lawa asuke ephuma, ama-glove asetshenziswayo. Yonke lento le masuyibuka ifaka imali. So ingakho ngithi yonke crisis ekhona ifaka imali. Angisho lutho ngabaholi bethu kodwa ngizama ukukwenzela isithombe sokuthi so yonke lento nale yenzeke Eskom njengoba esho uformer president ethi it's deliberate yingoba yonke crisis esinayo ifaka imali. Asiqhubeke no ready siza ukuthi uthini bese siyivala le video.
Energy was handed over to private interests. Today, Transnet not only moves 150 million tons of rail or on rail, while under Gama, it moved 230 million tons. They grounded the Chinese locomotives and told lies about Gama and China. Today, passenger rail carries only 20% of what it carried under Montana in 2015. All our gains have been reversed. This is white nationalist economics. Sabotage the public, sell them a private solution. Now let's speak about water. Millions of South Africans queue for water tankers while big business bottling plants continue operating uninterrupted. In places like eThekwini, people have been without water for months because the infrastructure has collapsed and no one in power cares enough to fix it. That is white supremacy in action, where basic human needs are commodified and the poor are abandoned. And who do they blame? They blame President Jacob Zuma, RET, and MK. But let me tell South Africa, you are not jobless because of President Zuma. You are not in darkness because of MK. You are not thirsty because of Gama, Molefe, or Montana. You are suffering because white capital has captured your government. The so-called GNU is not about unity. It is about protecting the economic status quo. It's about keeping black people poor while white wealth is preserved, untouched, and expanding. That is why they fear MK, because we will not kneel, we will not beg, we will not be bought, we will not surrender, and we thrive on independent thought. MK is the voice of the forgotten, the angry and the betrayed. And South Africans are seeing it all over the country through by-election results, as you can see. We say, number one, unseal the CR17 records. Let the people know who owns this president. The people that own this president are white supremacists, most of them foreigners. Two, investigate foreign influence in our elections and governance. Tell us how the DA grew from 17% to 22% in the last election. Tell us how the DA could predict in 2019 that it could become a 22% party when only 8% of the country supports the DA. Three, implement radical economic transformation without apology. And four, return the land to the original owners. Transform the economy, decolonize the state. Let me end with this, House Chair. With the prophetic words of great liberator, Chris Hani. He said, what I fear most is that the liberators will emerge as elitists, using the resources of this country to live in palaces while the poor remain in shacks. That day is here, but a new day is coming. The MK party is not just a party. We are a people's uprising inside parliament and beyond. The MK is a revolution. The MK is the people. Amandla aluta continua. Thank you.
Ngicabanga ukuthi sesingasekugcineni kwale video. Yabona njengemuzwe thinta indaba yamanzi. Ngiyazi ukuthi lapha eParliament babili abantu abayimelele noma bekhona abanye kodwa abayimele le ndaba yamanzi. Already noma Mkhawula we-EFF. Ya bayimele ngempela indaba yamanzi. Uminister uyazi nje ukuthi mayize eParliament ezokhuluma nalabantu funeka sazi isitori sakhe. Ngifisa ukucaphuna ivideo yokugcina bese siyivala le video.
Thank you to the ANC for electing Mr. Ramaphosa. You've got no idea. You've got no idea how important that is for this country's future. And my dad realized that. Close to his death, he was a happy man because of this monumental event in our history. Because I can guarantee you that most South Africans have a lot more hope for the future than they had exactly.
Yona ke video le bengithi angikulethele yona. Ngenhlanhla ibanga yinde kakhulu noma yona iyinde kodwa akuthusi kakhulu. Bengithi nje angikulethele le video. Ngento emayisho already ngase ihambelana nalama video enginawo. Noma ke ngingabacaphunanga wonke kodwa ngiwacaphunile lawe ebengicabanga ukuthi are relevant. Ngiyacela kuze ukuphawula kwakho mayelana nalolu daba. Ngizwe ukuthi wena ubona kanjani. Ngiyafisa ngempela ukuza umbono wakho. Ngizwe ukuthi wena uthini. Cela usubscribe ku channel. Mongaka subscribe, like ivideo, comment, ushare. Ushare kwakho nokucomment kwakho kuzoyilekelela le video igcine ibonwe ngabantu abaningi. Ungasupporta ngokujoin membership, ungasupporta ngokudonate noma ngamalini onayo. Ikhona i-account kwi-comment ephiniwe. Ngale kwalokho mina nawe sidibane kwivideo elandelayo. Ngiyabonga.